Hey, there we go. Welcome to the podcast. We're doing a little something a little different tonight. We're live streaming on Facebook and TikTok. We're going to see how that works out. Still curious how that's going to go. Don't have no idea. Facebook is a test. TikTok's normal stuff here. So the Pactolus Light, the ghost that still walks the tracks. Welcome back to Tick Bite NC. I'm Todd Edwards. Tonight we're going to head into one of Eastern North Carolina's oldest mysteries. A story of murder, a story of loss, and a story of railroad tracks stretching into the darkness. A light that people have been chasing for more than a century. This is the story of the Pactolus Light. And before we get into what people claim to have seen, we have to start with the dead. Long before modern highways, long before cell phones, long before GPS collars and social media, Eastern North Carolina was connected by dirt roads, horse trails, rivers, and railroads. And according to local legends, one young man never made it home. His name was Edwin Cox. The story says he was a young man deeply in love. One evening he saddled up his horse and began the journey to meet his fiancée near the railroad stop near Pactolus. Some versions place this story around 1910. Others say it happened earlier, but we really don't know exactly when it happened. The details change depending on who's telling the story. But in the ending, it remains the same. Edwin never arrived. Somewhere along the railroad corridor, robbers intercepted him. They wanted his horse. They wanted whatever money he carried. And before that night was over, Edwin Cox was dead. The horse was gone. The young man vanished. And according to legend, his body was never found. No grave, no funeral, no marker, nothing. Just a missing young man and a grieving family left with questions. Years later, people began reporting a strange light around the old railroad grade. A lantern-like glow, a floating light, something moving through the darkness. Locals began to whisper, maybe Edwin was still searching for the woman who waited for him, still trying to complete the journey he never finished, still walking the tracks, waiting and searching forever. Now, if you've spent much time around ghost stories, you know something interesting. Every community eventually develops its own explanation. And in Pactolus, there's another explanation, and this one's even darker. The second legend involves a railroad worker. Back in the days when trains ruled transportation, railroad workers performed dangerous jobs. There were no modern warning systems, no sophisticated communications equipment, no OSHA inspectors. If you worked for the railroad, every day carried risk. According to the story, one worker was performing his duties along the tracks near Pactolus. Someone said he carried a lantern. Others say he was inspecting the line. And then disaster struck. A train approached. Whether it failed to hear it, or he slipped, or maybe he simply ran out of time. Who knows? But the story claims is the train hit him. And when it did, it took its head. The railroad worker died instantly. His lantern disappeared into darkness, and according to local folklore, his spirit never left. Witnesses claim a lantern-like light appeared along the abandoned rail bed, sometimes stationary, sometimes moving, sometimes approaching, and the explanation spread from generation to generation that the worker was still there, still carrying the lantern, still searching for his head that he lost, still walking the tracks, night after night, year after year, decade after decade, looking, searching, but never finding, never resting. Imagine that moment, an endless stretch of railroad disappearing into darkness, a lonely lantern moving slowly through the night, and a man doomed to wander forever, not because he was evil, not because he was cursed, but because he simply never made it home. It's the kind of story perfectly designed to survive, because every railroad town has known loss, and every railroad town has known tragedy, and ghost stories often grow where grief once lived. I see you guys in there. Throw me in a couple of likes. Let them know. Let the algorithm know that you enjoy old-time storytelling. But here's where the legend becomes something more than a campfire story, because unlike many ghost tales, people claim they've seen it. People claim they've seen it today. And that brings us to the ritual. If you grew up anywhere around Pitt County, Grifton, Stokes, Pactolus, or the surrounding communities like I did, you've probably heard some version of this. Someone always knows someone who saw it. Someone always knows and swears it's real. And everybody says, let's go see it for ourselves. Usually at night, usually with more courage than common sense. And it's usually a car or truck full of teenagers. The instructions were simple. Drive to the old railroad grade, park, turn off the vehicle, flash your headlights 3 times, and then wait. It's real simple. 3 flashes, according to the legend, the Pactolus Light would appear. Some people claim it appeared instantly, others say it took several minutes. Some reported a white light, others described it as yellow. Some said it floated, others said it moved directly towards them. The stories varied, but one thing remained constant. The people telling them sound convinced that it happened. Absolutely convinced. They said they had seen something. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell you about my own experience, because I experienced the Pactolus Light myself. I was about 15 years old. I was a teenager, just a kid. And like countless other kids before me, I'd heard the stories of the Pactolus Light. The ghost, the railroad worker, the murdered young man, the lantern on the tracks, all of it. And eventually a group of us decided we were going to go. One of us got our driver's license, and that meant all of us were going to climb into the truck together. So a whole big group of us loaded up in this truck. There was about 4 of us in the cab. It was designed to sit 2, and probably about 12 of us in the bed. This is back when you could ride in the truck bed without getting in trouble. But that's what teenagers do. When somebody tells them not to do something, that's what we're going to do. So one night we loaded up and headed to the old railroad grade. The mood started out very confident. Everybody was very brave. We laughed, we talked big. You know how teenagers are. Nobody wanted to be the scared one. Eventually we reached the location. The truck stopped and the engine went quiet. And suddenly the darkness felt a whole lot darker. The jokes became less frequent. The confidence started to fade. The driver flashed the headlights 3 times. 1, 2, 3. We waited. And for a few moments, nothing happened, just darkness and silence. The kind of silence that seems louder than noise. And then somebody noticed it. Way down the old track bed, there was a light. Small at first, distant, and barely visible. And then it started moving, coming closer, steadily, towards us. Nobody was laughing anymore, and nobody was acting brave. We had brought some girls with us, and they were all screaming. People were talking to each other, scared to death. Everybody wanted to leave suddenly, immediately. The driver turned the key. Nothing. The truck would not start, which made everything worse. Now panic had arrived. We were debating jumping out of the truck and running, screaming, yelling, more fear. The light was coming closer. The driver turned the key again. Click, click, click. Nothing. Finally, the engine fired. The truck came to life and we left in a hurry. People in the back of the truck holding on for dear life. I don't remember anybody asking questions. I don't remember anybody wanting a better look. I don't remember anybody saying we should stay. All I remember is leaving, and leaving fast. Now here's the interesting part. That happened decades ago. I'm 57 years old. I was 15 at the time. Since this happened, I've been a soldier, a husband, a father, a grandfather. I've worked in the intelligence field. I've worked in law enforcement. I've investigated things. I've seen horrible things with my own eyes. I've learned to separate stories from facts. I've spent a lifetime looking for evidence. And yet, to this day, I have absolutely no desire to return and see the Pactolus Light. Not because I know it's a ghost, not because I know it isn't a ghost, but because whatever happened that night left an impression on me. One strong enough that after all these years, I still remember it. Now let's talk about what the light might actually be, because every mystery deserves skepticism. Some researchers believe the light is caused by distant vehicle headlights. Others point to atmospheric conditions, temperature inversions, light refractions, swamp gas, natural luminescence, a group of lightning bugs, reflections, optical illusions. And honestly, some of those explanations may be correct. Humans are so easy to fool. Our lies lie, our brains fill in the missing information. Fear changes perception. Darkness changes it too. Expectation changes perception. When you're expecting to see a ghost, you're probably going to see one. You're far more likely to interpret something unusual as supernatural. It's just human nature. But here's the problem. The reports have continued for generations. People who have never met each other, people separated by decades, people from way different backgrounds, different ages, and different experiences, all describe something remarkably familiar. A light moving through the darkness along the old railroad grade, and that keeps the mystery alive. Maybe it's Edwin Cox still searching for the woman he never reached. Maybe it's the railroad worker carrying the lantern through eternity. Maybe it's physics, maybe it's folklore, or maybe it's both. Because sometimes legends survive, not because they're true, but because they're meaningful. They connect generations, grandparents tell children, and the story keeps traveling. And just like that mysterious light moving through the darkness, refusing to disappear. When my grandchildren get a little older, we're probably going to go to Pactolus. So what do you think? Have you seen the Pactolus Light? Did you make the trip as a teenager? Did you flash your headlights 3 times? Did something answer back? Leave your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Until next time, I'm Todd Edwards. This has been the Tick Bite NC podcast. Stay safe, and if you're standing beside an old railroad grade late at night, you may want to think twice before flashing your headlights 3 times, because you never know. You may end up summoning the Pactolus Light. Catch you on the next one. Throw me some likes in there.